What happens when a CEO trades his penthouse office for a grease-stained apron and watches a young employee get humiliated in front of the entire kitchen? Kellan Pryce had inherited the 15-location diner chain from his father 3 years ago. It was booming on paper. But lately, complaints about the food and staff morale had started piling up, not just from customers but from exit interviews and anonymous HR reports. Numbers looked fine, but something felt off. Kellan didn't want another filtered report from a district manager, and he didn't trust staged store visits. The staff didn't know his face, he'd never met most of them. His dad had run things the old-school way, and Kellan had kept his distance, focusing on growth, not ground-level operations. That was his mistake, so he shaved the beard, dyed his hair blonde, added a fake tattoo sleeve, and called himself Kyle. He applied for a kitchen trainee spot at the downtown location, one of the busiest, but also one where turnover was the worst. The general manager only asked him a few questions before shrugging and saying, "We're short anyway. You start tomorrow." The staff didn't recognize him. It was a corporate chain. No one expected the CEO to be scrubbing dishes in the back room. His first day started with a burnt kvass, a broken dish bin, and a prep cook named Lewis showing him how to slice tomatoes without losing a finger. "Fast but clean," Lewis said, guiding his wrist. "They'll yell if it's sloppy." Kellan asked, but Lewis just glanced at the double doors to the kitchen. That's when the yelling started. "Who the hell cut these onions like they've got arthritis?" The voice came sharp, loud, and dripping with sarcasm. A tall man in a stained white coat stormed in, holding a pan. "You think this is a joke, Daisy?" Kellan turned. A girl, maybe 19 or 20, stood frozen by the prep table. She looked like she'd been caught stealing. I thought I was supposed to." "You thought," the chef barked. "No. You follow instructions, you don't think. Thinking's for people who know what they're doing." Her face flushed red. She looked down, embarrassed. The whole kitchen had gone quiet. Kellan felt his stomach twist. "Chef Mike's just like that," Lewis muttered beside him. "He's been here forever." "What's her name?" Kellan asked. "Daisy. She just started last week. Good kid. Tries hard." Chef Mike dumped the pan into the trash, still talking loud enough for everyone to hear. "Maybe if you spent less time daydreaming and more time listening, we wouldn't be wasting product. I've got standards. This ain't some high school cooking class." Daisy didn't respond. She just turned and walked toward the sink, wiping her eyes with her sleeve. Kellan wanted to say something, but he didn't. Not yet. He needed more time over the next few days. He worked side by side with the crew, scrubbing, slicing, running food. Lewis stayed patient, showing him little tricks to keep things moving. Daisy, quiet but focused, always stayed late to clean. Kellan noticed she was always the first to arrive and the last to leave. Every time Chef Mike passed her station, she flinched. He watched how the rest of the staff walked on eggshells. No one talked back. No one challenged Mike. Even the general manager, a guy named Brennan, seemed afraid of him. On the fourth day, Kellan asked Lewis, "Why does no one say anything?" Lewis shrugged. "He's tight with Brennan. They used to work together at another place, plus Mike's a good chef, food's solid, customers don't see any of this." "But the staff sees it," Kellan said. Lewis nodded. "Yeah. That's why people leave." Kellan joined Daisy on break that afternoon. "You okay?" he asked, sitting beside her on the back steps. She gave a small nod. "Just trying not to mess up again." "You didn't mess up." She looked at him, unsure. "You don't even work here." "Yeah, well, I've seen enough kitchens to know when someone's trying." She gave a small smile, but said nothing. That night, as the shift ended, Chef Mike shouted again, this time at a dishwasher for stacking plates wrong. He slammed a plate down so hard it cracked. Kellan caught Brennan in the office before leaving. "Hey, can I ask you something?" he said. Brennan looked up from the tablet. "Yeah." "Why does Mike talk to people like that?" Brennan sighed. "Look, I know he's rough, but he runs the kitchen right. He's been here since the start. These kids just need thicker skin. They're not soldiers, they're cooks." Brennan looked annoyed. "Listen, Kyle, you're new, don't overstep." Kellan left without another word, but inside he was boiling. He hadn't come here just to watch people get crushed. He was the damn owner. And now he'd seen enough. Tomorrow, things were going to change. The next morning, Kellan arrived early, long before the staff clocked in. He waited in the alley behind the diner, leaning against the cool brick wall, watching the sun rise over the silent city. The streets were still empty, but the kitchen lights had just flickered on. He needed to see who opened and how the day really started without the pressure of customers watching. At exactly 6:30, Daisy walked up the alley with her backpack over one shoulder. Her hoodie was damp at the edges. She looked surprised to see Kyle already there. "You beat me," she asked, pulling her key from her pocket. "Couldn't sleep," Kellan said. She unlocked the back door and led them inside. The kitchen was cold, metal surfaces still wiped clean from the previous night. Daisy set her bag down and began silently pulling on an apron. "You always open?" he asked. "Most days," she replied, tying her hair back. "Mike doesn't like to prep. He shows up when the breakfast rush starts." She didn't complain. She just moved with quiet efficiency, checking the fridge, turning on burners, unwrapping produce. Kellan picked up a knife and started peeling potatoes beside her. The silence wasn't awkward, it was focused. By 7, the other prep cook, a woman named Kira, arrived, followed by the dishwasher, a lanky man in his 50s named Greg who wore headphones around his neck. They greeted Daisy with nods. No one asked why the new guy was already working. They were used to filling gaps without explanation. When the general manager, Brennan, came through the swinging doors at 7:50, he didn't say good morning. He just tossed his keys on the counter and glanced over the prep line. "Where's Mike?" "Not here yet," Daisy said without looking up. Brennan grunted and walked back into the office. By 8:30, the kitchen had reached full volume. Orders came through in waves. The grill hissed, pans clattered, and the servers yelled back corrections. Kellan stayed on eggs and toast, a station Mike didn't care about. He didn't mind, he was watching. Mike rolled in at 8:45, wearing mirrored sunglasses and chewing something. He didn't speak to anyone at first. He just walked straight to the line, inspected a few trays, then shouted. "Who seasoned the sausage tray like it's a damn salt lick?" Kira flinched. "I followed the sheet." "Yeah, then the sheet's wrong." He turned to Brennan, who had just reappeared. "What's with the new guy still on toast? That's not a trainee station." "He's filling in," Brennan replied. "We're short again." Mike sneered, then turned to Kellan. "You think you're ready to run sauté today?" Kellan wiped his hands. "I'll do whatever's needed." Mike narrowed his eyes at the response, like he didn't like the tone but didn't push it. "Fine, don't burn anything and don't touch my station." The day wore on in bursts of chaos. Kellan watched as Mike corrected things by shouting across the kitchen instead of walking 10 feet. He barked at Kira for stacking the pancakes unevenly, told Greg to use both hands like a real adult, and openly mocked a server for forgetting to relay a table's allergy note. But what made Kellan's blood run cold was what happened at the end of the lunch rush. Daisy had just finished plating a large order when one of the tickets fell off the rail and slid under the prep table. She didn't notice until Mike walked by and saw the delay. "The hell is this?" he snapped, pointing at the screen. "That table's been up for 15 minutes, Daisy looked up, confused. "I just plated, don't talk, fix it." She scrambled to find the missing ticket, finally pulling it from the floor. It must have slipped. Mike snatched it from her hand and jabbed it at her chest. "You're wasting my time. You think the customers care about your excuses?" Kellan froze. His jaw clenched. Daisy stood stiff, eyes wide, not blinking. "Get out of the way," Mike said, pushing past her to replate the order himself. Daisy stepped back and turned away, but not fast enough to hide the tears forming. That was it. Kellan dropped the spatula and pulled off his apron. He walked straight to Brennan, who was leaning against the beverage fridge, pretending not to have seen anything. "We're stepping into the office. Now," Brennan blinked. "Why?" "Because I'm done pretending." Inside the cramped office, Kellan shut the door behind them. He pulled off the name tag from his shirt and dropped it on the desk. I'm Kellan Pryce. I own this company. Brennan's face went completely still. Wait, what? You heard me. I've been undercover here all week and I've seen enough. Brennan stood frozen. I mean we didn't know, you didn't need to know. What I needed was to see what you let happen here. Brennan started speaking fast. Look, I know Mike's harsh, but he's efficient. The kitchen runs fast. He gets results. At what cost? Kellan said, voice low now. You watched a 19-year-old girl get publicly humiliated, not once, not twice, multiple times, and you did nothing. He's just passionate about standards. You know what's not a standard? Shoving tickets into someone's chest, calling people stupid. Making grown adults feel like they're disposable. Brennan shifted uncomfortably. If we lose him, it'll be chaos. He's been here since the beginning, and he'll be gone before dinner. Wait, no negotiations. Kellan stepped out of the office and walked back into the kitchen. The staff glanced up, confused by the sudden tension. Mike was plating an omelet, oblivious. Kellan walked straight up to him. Take off your apron. Mike looked up, confused. What? You're done here. Who the hell do you think? I think I'm the person who signs every paycheck in this building. Mike's mouth opened, then closed. He looked to Brennan, but Brennan said nothing. You're not just a bad leader, Kellan said, loud enough for the whole kitchen to hear. You're a liability. You've disrespected your team. You've created an environment where people are afraid to speak. That ends now. Mike tried to laugh it off. You're making a mistake. No. I made the mistake of letting this go on for too long. Mike tossed his apron on the counter and stormed out without another word. The doors swung behind him. Silence fell over the kitchen. Kellan turned to the crew. Anyone else feel they need to scream to do their job? No one answered. Didn't think so. He looked at Daisy, who stood motionless by the prep sink. You okay? She nodded slowly, but her hands were trembling. Take your break, he said gently. Paid, take 15. She hesitated, then stepped outside. Kellan turned back to the team. This place is going to change. Right now, not next month, not next quarter, now. Greg raised his hand awkwardly. Does that mean we finally get gloves that don't rip when they're wet? Kellan almost laughed. Yes, and more. He grabbed the clipboard from the wall and held it up. We're pulling double duty today. I'll cover Mike's station. Brennan will assist on grill. Lewis will rotate to expedite. Kira, your lead prep. You've earned it. Kira blinked. Seriously, you've been holding this place together, I noticed. Greg leaned toward Lewis. Did we just get promoted by a ghost? Kellan chuckled. And tomorrow, I want every one of you in the staff room at 7 sharp. I'll be here. We're going to talk about how this place should actually run. As the team dispersed, Daisy stepped back inside, her eyes red but steady. Kellan met her gaze. You deserve to be safe at work, he said quietly. She nodded. Thank you. Kellan returned to the stove, picked up a clean pan, and got to work. For the first time all week, the kitchen moved without fear. The next morning, Kellan arrived before sunrise again. He didn't wear the apron, no fake name tag, just a plain black shirt and jeans. When Daisy entered through the back door, she paused when she saw him already inside. You're not prepping today? She asked, setting her bag down. I am. Just not as Kyle. She looked at him, puzzled for a second before understanding settled in. She didn't say anything, just gave a small nod and walked to the sink to wash her hands. Kira and Greg arrived next, both looking unsure how to greet him now that the truth had surfaced. Kellan didn't expect fanfare. He just greeted them like any other team member and went right to peeling onions. The mood in the kitchen was cautious, like everyone was waiting to see if yesterday's shift had been a one-time event. At 7 sharp, the team gathered in the cramped break room. Kellan stood near the whiteboard with a dry erase marker in one hand and a clipboard in the other. Brennan was at the back of the room, arms crossed, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. I'm not here to give a speech, Kellan began, but I do want to set something straight. What happened yesterday wasn't a performance, it wasn't for show, it was overdue. No one spoke. Some leaned against the wall, others stood with arms folded. Daisy sat on a milk crate, hands clasped tight. I came here because I stopped trusting the reports I was getting. I wanted to know what it really felt like to work here, and what I saw how some of you were treated was unacceptable." He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "We're going to fix this. But that means more than removing one person. It means changing how this place runs. And that starts with listening to you." He turned to the whiteboard and wrote 2 words. "What's broken? Say anything. Doesn't matter if it's big or small, I want everything." Greg cleared his throat. "The dish pit floods every time a bus tray gets dumped too fast." "Been like that since winter." Kira pointed at the ceiling. "That vent hasn't worked for months. We overheat every lunch rush." Lewis added, "Food inventory always arrives late. It messes up prep schedules. Last week we had to sub out pasta because the delivery came short." Daisy hesitated, then spoke. "The fryer oil doesn't get changed unless someone complains, and there's no system for checking." Kellan wrote down every issue without comment. When the board was full, he stepped back and looked at it. "This is what I needed, real problems, not filtered reports." Brennan finally spoke. "Some of this stuff's been submitted already, nobody acted on it." "Noted," Kellan said without looking at him. Kira turned slightly. "What about staffing? We're running short almost every weekend." Kellan nodded. "We're auditing schedules across all locations. Overtime abuse, shift gaps, and underpaid roles are on that list. I can't promise immediate hires, but I can promise we'll stop burning people out." Lewis added, "Can we get someone who actually trains new hires? Most of us had to figure stuff out from watching others." "That's already changing," Kellan said. "And it starts today." He turned to Brennan. "You're not running the floor today. Lewis is." Brennan straightened. "Excuse me?" "You've been here long enough to know the rules," Kellan said, "but you let things slide. You let people get hurt for the sake of convenience. You're off the floor until further notice, so I'm being punished." "No, you're being held accountable." The room didn't cheer, didn't clap, but a silence deeper than before settled in. One where people actually listened. Outside the break room, the kitchen picked up again. Kellan worked the line during breakfast, this time side by side with Lewis, who took to the lead role naturally. He didn't shout. He didn't micromanage. He just called out orders clearly, asked for updates, and helped wherever hands were needed. When a new server misread a ticket, he walked her through the fix instead of snapping. Daisy was quieter than usual, but more focused. Kira gave her backup at the prep table, correcting a seasoning ratio without judgment. The rhythm wasn't perfect, but it was better. Around mid-morning, a man in a dark gray polo entered through the back head of HR for the company, sent by Kellan after yesterday's reveal. He didn't interrupt the kitchen. He just took Brennan aside into the office. The door closed behind them. Greg leaned over to Kellan at the dish station. "So what happens now? We just run like normal?" "No," Kellan said. "We run right." By noon, the shift was tighter. Orders moved faster. No one yelled. Kellan noticed Kira adjusting the prep sheet on her own, modifying portions based on the new ticket trends. No one told her to do it. She just saw the need and acted. After the lunch rush, Greg poked his head into the office to report the sink drain had finally backed up completely. Kellan grabbed a mop and joined him. He didn't hand it off. He cleaned it himself. "You're really not just passing through, are you?" Greg said while holding the bucket steady. "No, I'm staying until this place works the way it should. Think the others will change too. They'll have to." Later that afternoon, Daisy approached him after cleaning her station. "Can I ask something?" "Of course." "Why did you pick here out of all the locations?" He folded a towel and set it down. "High turnover, complaints, orders getting returned more than any other store. I figured this place would show me what was really going on." She looked down at her hands. "You saw a lot." "I did." She hesitated. "Then you know why people leave." "I do now," she nodded, but didn't walk away. "Daisy," he said, "you're not invisible here, not anymore." Her eyes didn't meet his, but her posture shifted just enough to say she believed him. The HR rep exited the office with Brennan behind him. Brennan's face was unreadable, but he didn't return to the floor. He took off his name tag, handed it to the HR rep, and left through the side door without speaking to anyone. Kellan didn't announce it. He didn't need to. By dinner prep, the team had adjusted. Everyone filled in the gaps. Louis delegated, Kira corrected stock counts, Daisy restocked sauces without being asked. Greg kept the dish rotation flowing without delay. The energy was different, not louder, not cheerful, but stable, earned. At close, the crew gathered again, not because they had to, but because they didn't want to leave without knowing what came next. Kellan stood by the door, glancing at the faces around him. You all did more than hold it together today. You proved what this place can be. No one interrupted. There's more to fix, and I'll be here while we do it. He looked at each of them one by one. Tomorrow's not just another shift, it's the start of a new standard. No one clapped, no one cheered, they just nodded, and for the first time it felt like that was enough. 2 weeks after Kellan's identity was revealed, the downtown location still felt like a work in progress. The changes were underway, but not everything could be fixed overnight. Equipment still broke, schedules still stretched thin across peak hours, and tempers occasionally flared. But the fear, the constant tension that had once gripped the kitchen was gone. On a chilly Thursday morning, Kellan sat at one of the back booths, a legal pad open in front of him. He'd spent the last few days shadowing shifts without stepping into any leadership role. He wanted to see who stepped up, who stayed consistent, and where the cracks still were. Louis approached with 2 coffees, setting one down without asking. You still writing those notes? He asked. I am. Trying to map a new training system based on how things actually flow. Louis nodded and leaned against the booth. You're gonna roll this out everywhere, eventually, but not before it's solid here. Louis didn't respond right away. His eyes drifted toward the kitchen, where Kira was guiding a new prep hire through the opening checklist. You keep watching, but it's different now, Louis said. They know who you are. I'm not here to catch anyone slipping, Kellan replied. I'm here to build something that lasts without me needing to watch. He closed the notepad and looked around the nearly empty dining room. How's the team holding up? Louis crossed his arms. They're adjusting, still stretched, still tired, but it's different now. They know someone's paying attention. Kellan glanced at the incoming schedule on his phone. We approved 2 more kitchen hires this week. Once they're trained, we'll get you all breathing room. Louis gave a short laugh. We'll believe it when they show up. Kellan smiled faintly, but said nothing more. The door chimed. Daisy had arrived for the midday shift. She'd swapped to afternoons after requesting shorter hours so she could return to her community college classes. Kellan had approved it without hesitation. She waved briefly at the booth, then headed straight for the back to clock in. No hesitation in her steps now. Later that afternoon, a corporate inspector arrived unannounced. Not from health or safety, this one was from Kellan's own executive team. A tall woman in her 40s with a clipboard and a no-nonsense voice. She was there to assess implementation of the reforms. Not everyone on the board had agreed with Kellan's approach. Some thought the public firing had been too impulsive. She was sent to evaluate the outcome. Kellan didn't hover. He let her walk the kitchen, ask questions to staff, and observe the line during the dinner rush. He stayed on the floor, running food to tables and helping Greg reorganize the back storage shelves. It wasn't until close that she approached him in the office. Your team's loyal, she said, setting the clipboard down. They've been through a lot. They've been holding this place together without support for longer than I realized. She studied him for a moment. You know, some of the board wants you to step back from operations. I won't. They think it's beneath your role. Then they've forgotten what leadership is. She didn't argue, just closed her folder. You've got one of the highest employee retention spikes since the restructuring. That's hard to argue with. Before she left, she turned back. You're rewriting the playbook. Just make sure you're ready when others start expecting the same. I am. The next morning, Kellan called a short meeting in the dining room before opening. Not a formal one, just a quick regroup. Everyone stood in a loose circle, aprons on, coffee in hand. Starting next week, he said, we're launching a trial mentorship program here, one-on-one pairing between experienced team members and new hires, paid hours, structured checklists. You'll train the way you wish someone had trained you, Kira raised her hand. We choosing who we mentor, you'll get pairing options, no one's forced into it. Greg looked up from his cup. We getting paid extra for mentoring, you are, hourly bonus. Lewis rubbed his jaw. That coming from corporate, it's coming from me. I'm redesigning the training budget, Daisy chimed in quietly. What if someone's new but wants to mentor eventually? Then they work toward it. Everyone's got a path forward now. There were no cheers. Just nods, murmurs of interest, and a few raised eyebrows. But no one looked skeptical. After the dinner shift that night, Kellan invited the crew to stay an extra 15 minutes for a surprise. Daisy stayed near the back, drying her hands. Lewis sat on an upside-down milk crate. Kira leaned on the prep table, arms folded. Kellan stood near the register with a small stack of envelopes and a clipboard. I've created a recognition fund, he said. Quiet awards for people who have gone above and beyond without waiting for someone to notice. He handed the first envelope to Greg for revamping the dish rotation on your own and preventing 2 major backups last week. Greg opened it, blinked, then looked up. This is real bonus. Not a gift card, direct deposit if you want. Next, he handed one to Kira. For stabilizing prep and reworking the produce orders to reduce waste. She opened it, then looked over at Daisy. What about her? She asked. Kellan nodded and walked to Daisy with the final envelope. For showing up every day with focus, consistency, and 0 excuses without ever asking for recognition. Daisy took it slowly. She didn't open it right away, just held it in both hands. You deserve to be seen, Kellan said quietly. She gave a small nod, eyes not leaving the envelope. After the others left, Kellan stayed behind with Lewis to clean the last few surfaces. You know, Lewis said, running a cloth under the faucet, some people probably think you did all this to look good. Let them, Kellan replied. They didn't see what I saw. Lewis turned off the water. You sticking around? For now, I'll rotate between stores eventually, but this one's the blueprint. Lewis reached for the mop bucket. Well, if you're ever short a pair of hands again, I've got a cousin who can work weekends. Have him apply. We'll do it right this time. Outside, the streetlights glowed over wet pavement. The city was quiet. The kind of quiet that comes after something's been set right, even if only in one small pocket of the world. Inside the diner, the kitchen lights dimmed, the doors locked, and for the first time in a long while the space felt whole, not perfect, but honest. And for Kellan Pryce, that was the beginning of something worth building.